Good evening, and welcome to our session this evening where we are coming to you live. Today is National Voter Registration Day, and I bring you greetings on behalf of the Upsilon Epsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. My name is Kendra Brown, and I'm the president of Upsilon Epsilon Omega chapter. I bring you greetings on behalf of our international president, Dr. Glenda Baskin Glover, and our North Atlantic Regional Director, Mary Bentley Lamar. This evening, we celebrate National Voter Registration Day. We are joining forces with groups and individuals across the nation to ensure voters are registered in advance of Election Day on November the 3rd. First and foremost, I want to take a moment to honor the life and legacy of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. As the second woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, she was a passionate advocate for women's rights and social justice. Advocates and legal scholars credit her for making significant legal advances for women under the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. So this evening, we honor her for being a true champion of justice. Today, on National Voter Registration Day, because there is so much incorrect information being set forward, we are ensuring our voices are heard by provoking discussion, increasing voter registration, promoting voter education, and encouraging awareness of the political process for the betterment and enrichment of our community. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated has partnered with When We All Vote to ensure everyone is aware of when to vote and how to vote and is registered to vote. We want everyone to know their rights and be aware of how and when you vote within your jurisdiction. And with that, you will now hear from a very special voice on the importance of today. Now they're getting the screen queued up. We have so many wonderful partners that we are engaged with around the nation on today for When We All Vote. The conversation this evening is going to focus around education, around ensuring everyone knows where to register, when to register, how to vote, how to cast their ballot, and to ensure that they are counted. So we thank you all for joining this evening. We have so many amazing panelists who are going to share critical information. We're going to have a question and answer session so that we can ensure that questions are answered real time so that you get the information that you need to ensure that you are educated and know the logistics and know where to go. We're going to give you the website information. We are going to give you the website information at a national level, but also specifically for Maryland so that everyone is aware of their logistics for their jurisdiction. So with that, I think that we are just about ready to hear from a wonderful voice who's been leading in this effort. All right.
Hello, ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for all that you're doing to help everyone in this country make their voices heard in this year's election and in every election. Your work has never been more important. From the ongoing pandemic to the passion and protests we've seen for racial and social justice, it's clear that we're in the middle of a big moment in this country. And that means we need leadership that honestly reflects who we are and what we stand for. Our job between now and November is to make sure everyone we know understands that the power to make change rests on our ability to cast a vote. Fair and safe voting is going to be more important than ever this year. And that's why When We All Vote is fighting to expand vote by mail, in-person early voting, and online voter registration. Now, I'm going to be honest. We're really going to need your help to make these efforts a success. Luckily, The first step is an easy one. Just spread the word. Make sure your friends, families, and communities are registered, know their rights, and are fully prepared to vote by mail this year or vote early in person. I know many of you have entered the voter registration challenge, and I've been training your very own voting squads. And we're going to need you to keep that momentum going. So go to whenweallvote.org to find out more and get yourselves, your families, and your friends ready to make their voices heard. Let's get more folks across the country trained with the tools, the resources, and the information they'll need to vote, because this election couldn't be more important. Thanks again, everybody, for all that you do, and keep up the great work.
All right, at this time, we're going to hear from one of our members. Her name is Crystal Staples, and she is the lead for our voter registration efforts. Crystal?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm so honored to be here. We have such a great lineup of panelists. This webinar is going to speak to ensuring that our voices are heard in this election, general election 2020. And so without further ado, please allow me to introduce to you, to present to others and introduce to you our panelists for this evening. Before we do that, we'd like to acknowledge and recognize Ms. Cheryl Pasture, who may be in our audience, hopefully. She is the Baltimore County School Board member and a former principal of the Randallstown High School, for helping us to make the contacts with the officials, Ms. Dickerson for Chief of Staff, and enabled UEO to actually reach the Baltimore County Public School students through their counselors. So thank you, Ms. Pasture, for helping us with that endeavor. Okay, so first up is our first panelist is Ms. Danna Archie-Williams. She is the election program supervisor for the Provisional Department, Baltimore County Board of Elections. She is a native of Baltimore who graduated from Randallstown High School and later earned her associate's degree in accounting from the Community College of Baltimore, and later earned her associate's degree in accounting from the Community College of Baltimore County. And then she continued her education and obtained her Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics with a minor in early childhood education from Towson University. Next, we have Mr. Clifford Collins. He is the second vice president and chair of the Political Action Committee of the Baltimore County NAACP. He also serves as chairman of the Northwest Area Education Advisory Council, member of the Baltimore County 2020 Census Complete County Committee, and PAL leader with the Baltimore County Department of Parks and Recreation. Mr. Collins has held positions as National Director of Voter Education for the NAACP, Community Partnership Specialist with the Bureau of the Census, and the School Up to Community Coordinator, Behavior Interventionist, and Special Education Teacher with Baltimore County Public Schools. Then we have also with us Ms. Tenne Thrower, who is the Project Manager and Curator for Black Girls Vote. She is a lifelong resident of Baltimore and product of Baltimore City and County Public Schools. Ms. Tenne has a wealth of knowledge and an unmatched dedication to improving educational and social and emotional outcomes for families. Ms. Tenne has been recognized in the local and regional press for successfully developing and implementing several community-led engagement strategies with school visionings campaigns within nonprofits and schools throughout Baltimore. And then last but not least, of course, we have Ms. Janice Washington. She is our Maryland State, AKA Connection Chair. She is a native of Dallas, Texas, and resides right here in Owens Mills, Maryland. She received her formal education in the Dallas Public Schools and graduated from the University of North Texas with a bachelor's degree in government and a master's of teaching degree from Groucher College. As a youth leader, Ms. Janice led the National NAACP Youth and College Division in a campaign to lower the voting age to 18 years old and to lobby the Congress to approve the 26th Amendment to the Constitution. During her 27 years with the NAACP, Ms. Janice represented the NAACP at the United States Council Western Alliance Conference in London, Belgium, and Holland. She has served as the National Membership Director for the Mid-Atlantic Regional Director and the Assistant Director of the Branch and Field Services. After leaving the NAACP, Ms. Janice has served 18 years as the campaign organizer, legislative aide to Delegate Emmett Burns of the 10th Legislative District for Baltimore County. Also, we have with us our moderator for the evening is Ms. Janelle Herring. She is our Alpha Kappa Alpha UEO chapter, AKA Connection Chair, and she will be moderating this evening. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Janelle Herring.
So thank you, Crystal, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We have a action jam-packed webinar panel discussion on ensuring our voices are heard. And so I'd like to start this discussion with Danna Archie-Williams for the Baltimore County Board of Elections. So Ms. Danna?
Hello, how are you this evening? There's a couple of things that we're going to start with. I have some slides that are ready for you. We're going to talk about different areas that you can, one, register to vote. You could also apply for an application to mail in to vote. And also, we're going to talk about the early voting. But right now, we're going to start off with the recognized parties in the state of Maryland. There are some new ones that you'll see here, which is the Bread and Roses, of course, the Democratic Party. We have the Green Party that is recognized again, also the Libertarian. And we also have the Republican Party. And as you can see at the very bottom, it will be one that is called the Working Class Party. These are all the parties that are recognized in the state of Maryland. So when we talk about those are when you register, you can actually register as one of these party affiliations. We can go to the next screen. Okay, so these are some things that we're going to talk about. We're going to actually talk about registration. In order for you to vote in Maryland, one, you must be registered. The deadline for registration is October the 13th of 2020. Now, with that being said, in order for you to register, you can actually register in person here at the office. You can drop off your registration, or you can actually do it online. We will supply you with a website that you can go to register right then and there. And also on there, you can also request your mail-in ballot. Now, we can also talk about the request for your mail-in ballot. You can do that online. You can do that by mail, because in the state of Maryland, the governor had instructed us, and we did, mail out to all registered voters the opportunity to do a mail-in ballot. Also, you may also fax your forms to here, right here in Baltimore County, or wherever you are in the state of Maryland. We can make sure that we get it to the local boards for you. They must be received by October the 20th. Voting by mail, with all of these opportunities that you have, all you have to do is complete it, sign it, seal it, and send it back in. No different than your actual ballot once you receive that. Complete it, sign your oath, and put it back in the mail. We'll also talk about some locations where you can actually drop it off. You can actually drop it off with the post office, and they will get it to us because it is free of charge for you. It is already pre-stamped. All you have to do is fill it out, seal it, sign it, and send it in. Also, we will have drop boxes. Officially, we are going to have an entire 43 different locations where you can drop off your ballot. They will be listed and they are going to be on all of our websites throughout the state of Maryland. There will be located at all the early voting locations, which we have 11 in Baltimore County alone. The listing for them are, of course, which is Arbutus Rec Center. You have Randallstown Community Center. You also have the campus at Owens Mills. You have Honeygo Community, Jacksonville, Oregon Ridge and Lodge. Also, you have Randallstown Senior Center, Solars Point, which is more on the east side of town. You also have Towson University, Victory Villa, and also Woodlawn Community Center. So you can see there's quite a few locations that you can actually drop your mail off as well. And also right here in Hunt Valley, where we are in Hunt Valley at the Baltimore County Board of Election. It'll be right out front. That is going to actually start within the next 3 weeks. So you should be looking for your ballot by the end of the month, and you will be excited to be able to vote this election, complete it, sign it, seal it, and send it in. There are also opportunities for individuals to serve as election judges. All you have to do is give us a call somewhere in the state. There may be an opening for us. There are some other things that you need to know about being an election judge. One, you're going to be trained. And also, besides community that you're giving back to, you're also going to be paid for that event. It's an exciting day, and you're going to be ready and have nothing but opportunity to meet and greet with individuals. Also, we're going to talk about a little bit about the accessibility of voting. There are opportunities for you to actually do a ballot by mail or a paper ballot. Then also, if you go into one of the early voting locations, you may want to use the BMD. It is called the ballot marketing device. Originally, these were made for people who wanted to do independent voting without the assistance of others. But actually, it's a great way to do it because all you're doing is creating a ballot. It has the touch screen. You can actually see each vote that you have. And at the end of it, it will actually print out your ballot. That's an exciting way for people with special needs, as well as people with sight issues and also hearing issues. We have earphones ready for you, and we also have something that's called the sip and puff. So if you have special needs, by all means, you'll be ready to do that as well. So if we can go ahead to the next screen. So let's recap what we have. Early voting. Early voting starts actually on October the 26th, which is a Monday, and it will run straight through Monday, November the 2nd. That is early voting. Exciting times every day, all day. So starting at 7 a.m. and running all the way through to 8 p.m. each and every day, including the weekends. In order to find the locations, one, they will be on the back of your application that you're going to mail in. And also, we're going to send out to you a specimen ballot, so you know what's going to be on your ballot for your location ahead of time. So they will also have the locations for early voting as well on there. And again, it will be running through from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at each one of those locations. We talked about voting by mail. Please, please, please make sure that you get those in the mail. If you decide to use the post office, make sure it is postmarked by Tuesday, November the 3rd, which is an exciting day, which is election day. Make sure it is postmarked. So as soon as you receive it, vote it, seal it, sign it, and put it back in the mail for you. We talked about the drop boxes. If you do not choose to use the post office, we're going to have those located around the county and also around the state. But for Baltimore County residents, make sure that you take a look at all the locations that it has that you can drop off your ballot once you've completed it. And now we're going to talk about voting in person. Now, we talked about it being as early voting, and of course, we will also have election day. Now, we're also going to be mindful of the social distancing. We are going to also offer you 31 additional locations. So we'll have a grand total of 42 locations that you can vote in on election day. So the 11 early voting sites will then become also voting sites on election day. And then we have another additional 31 that of course can be looked at on our website at any time that you choose to look at those. And the voting centers will be open at 7 a.m. and will run until 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November the 3rd, which is election day. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have another listing, once again, of all of the early voting locations that we have. We have 11 in Baltimore County alone, and they all will run from October the 26th through November the 2nd. And remember I said on November the 3rd, which is election day, they will also be voting centers as well. You will see the listing here, and of course it'll be posted on every website that we have. Thank you so much. Right here, you see the different dates. So we're going to reiterate it one more time, the locations as well as the dates and times. Make sure if you're not registered, get registered by the close of registration, which is Tuesday, October the 13th at 5 p.m. at the office. Also, it needs to be postmarked by that day if you choose to mail it in. And if you're online, it'll be 11:59 p.m. We've talked about the early voting. And yes, on election day, we will also have something which is called the same-day registration. Same-day registration means that you can actually register that day and also vote that day if you have a Maryland state license or a Maryland state ID. And you also need to be at least 18 on election day. Prior to that, of course, you know, you can register as early as 16, but in order to vote, you need to be 18 on election day at the latest. So please make sure that if you have any concerns or anything, please call me directly. My name is Danna Archie-Williams, and my telephone number here at Baltimore County Board of Election is 410-887-1065, and that is my direct line.
So thank you, Ms. Archie-Williams. That was a wealth of information. And so we're going to now open the lines up to our attendees to ask you some questions. And I think we are also doing this live on Facebook. So we'll allow the attendees that are attending via Zoom to put your Q&A in the Q&A box. And if you are on Facebook watching us or attending the discussion with us, you can also put your question in the chat. And so Ms. Archie-Williams, give us a second so we can see if we have any questions for you from our attendees.
All right.
Okay, so while we're waiting, I'll ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you gave us a wealth of information on how to get registered and all of the different polling sites, whether we vote in person on election day, November 3rd, or if we want to early vote beginning in October the 26th, and if we decide to mail in our ballot, which will be coming to us shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I check my status to make sure that I am in fact registered to vote?
Great question. There is a website, which is the state board's website. So no matter where you live in Maryland, you can actually look up your information. You can actually go on, and it is the basic website for the www.elections.maryland.gov. And Maryland is spelled out. And on there, it actually has a panel for you to actually look up your information. So you will have to enter in some basic information about your name, date of birth, things like that. And then it will actually tell you where you're registered, where you would go at to vote, and basically also what your ballot will look like when it comes to you in the mail.
Okay, awesome. So we have a question from Facebook, and the question is, must I early vote in the county in which I reside in?
Yes. It's a very simple yes. In order for you to receive a ballot that is specifically made for you, for where you reside at, you must go to the county that you reside in to be able to vote the correct ballot for you.
However, if I live, let's say I live in Baltimore County and I typically vote at my local elementary school, during early voting, I can go to any location.
Any location in Baltimore County, or if you live in Baltimore City, you can go to any one of those locations in Baltimore City. So
Perfect.
Whatever jurisdiction you live in, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so while we're waiting for another question, so the ballots are coming out early. Is there any penalty, or will my ballot count if I get it on October 1st and I mail it in October 2nd? Would that hurt me, or do I need to send it in by the deadline? So the question is, will my ballot count if I send it in before the deadline, and will it count if it's received after the deadline?
The exciting part about the process, elections, most people think election day and that's it. Election actually takes 21 days to certify. The reason for that is because there are so many canvases that are conducted. So your received ballots will be canvassed before, on election day, and up to after election day. This is why it takes you more time to do it. Also, the people who receive ballots that are in other countries. Because remember, we still have military, we have overseas. So we still have to allot for their ballots to come back as well. So we want you to get it. We want you to complete it. We want you to sign it and send it in as soon as you receive it and complete it. We'd rather for you to have it in early than wait too late.
Perfect. So it looks like we have another question from Facebook. And the question is, if I get a ballot by mail and I change my mind and decide to vote in person, can I do that?
You would be able to vote because we never turn a person away. The problem comes in is that you would only be able to do a provisional vote because one, I have to make sure that your mail-in ballot didn't come in and we haven't counted that first, because if the provisional comes in afterwards, then you voted twice and you only can vote once in the state of Maryland.
Okay. The other question is, what is the best time I should go early voting without standing in a long line?
Receive your ballot in the mail. You won't have to wait in line. The other option is normally there are early risers and there are late comers. So in between the hours of, say, probably 10 and 2 are probably more quieter times. Prayerfully, everyone is doing mail-in ballots, so we won't have a line because people are staying home and staying safe.
And quite honestly, if the line is long, stay in
You
the
have
line.
another day. You have another day.
So we have another question. What are some useful tips or things to be mindful of on election day if you want to vote in person?
Participation of, it may be a wait, mainly because with the governor's orders, we still only can allow but so many people in any given space. Also, you need to be 6 feet from each other, even when you're standing in the line. So it's still going to be a time censored opportunity for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So another question, if we apply to receive a mail-in ballot, what is the approximate date that we would receive it in the mail to complete it?
Right now, the schedule is set as the first mailing for domestic ballots will be the last week of September. So if you get your information in now, you will be a part of the first run. So the first run will allow you to get your ballot earlier.
Okay. So it looks like we have 4 more questions, okay? So the one is, speak to incarcerated persons wishing to vote. Is that possible?
Yes, by all means. There's 2 parts to that. If a person has been convicted for a felony and they have completed their time in incarceration, but they're now home, of course, they can register and they can vote. If a person is in the prison system now, there are avenues that are already in place that are asking them, would you like to register and vote? Mainly because you have not been sentenced as of yet. You haven't been convicted as of yet. So yes, you can still register and vote. So I have 3 of them that I just did today. So I'm excited about that our young people are still being very focused on their future.
Awesome, awesome. I have a question here that says, I volunteered to be an election judge and I haven't heard from the Board of Elections. Are all the positions filled because training is occurring this week?
Actually, yes, that's why I missed the last one, because I was training. So understand this. We originally have normally 236 locations that we used to have to house. And that was a minimum of 12 judges in each location. By us only having 43, they are actually weeding through the individuals who choose not to come back first. And then, of course, we're always building a list and ready, because if you're younger, most of our election judges, hard to say, but most of them started at the age of 60. So we're going through that whole process, and it's very time consuming from the number of phone calls and inquiries that we have received to put everybody in place and also put them scheduling as well. So it is going to be a time consuming, and be rest assured, If you're not called on this time, we have election again within the next 2 years.
Yes, yes, we do. And the last question, Mr. Archie-Williams, is, do you have to make sure you have a driver's license when you vote, or just your voter registration card?
Awesome question. The HAVA Act, which was applied in 2004, it was Help America Vote Act. That made states actually verify your information when you registered. So that's why you don't need it when you actually go in to vote, as long as you can answer the basic questions that are asked of you. If it is your first time registering, same day registration, yes, you do have to have a Maryland driver's license or a Maryland ID card.
Awesome. So Ms. Archie-Williams, do you mind sticking around in case we have some questions for you later on?
Oh, by all means, I'll be right here.
Wonderful, because we'd like to get to this dynamic panel that we have assembled, because I'm sure that there are some other burning questions that we have with regards to ensuring that our voices are heard. So without further ado, I'd like to start the conversation off. I hear this a lot lately. I don't feel like my voice will be heard. Why is it important for me to vote? Because when I vote, nothing happens. And so that myth is out there. So I'd like for our panelists, Ms. Tenne Thrower, Mr. Clifford Collins, and Ms. Janice Washington, and anyone can go first. What is the value in utilizing your voice, i.e. your vote? Who would like that question first? I see your face, Tenne. Go ahead.
I knew you were going to call on me. I believe that there is a lot of value in our voice and our vote. I think that sometimes we don't realize, or a lot of times we don't realize what the power is behind our vote. I said it on our last conversation last week, and I'll say it again. I think that voting is one of the things that keeps us all on the same playing field. I think that we should all see that no matter what your socioeconomic status is, whether you're a celebrity or not, let's say Jeezy the rapper, or the Pope, or the President of the United States, right? We all have that same one vote. No other person has more votes than another person. No one's vote weighs more power than another person. And that's why our vote matters when it comes to us sticking together in numbers and being able to understand what's important and what the important issues are for not just us as individuals, but the people who are attached to us and connected to us. So I would say that there's a lot of weight in our voice and in our vote.
Thank you. Mr. Collins? You're on mute, Mr. Collins. You're on mute.
I apologize.
That's okay. There you go.
No, you're saying, why is our vote important?
Yeah, well, what is the value in utilizing your vote, your voice?
Well, I have to start with a comment that it seems that many people who are in charge of our body politic at the local and national level, they believe our vote is more valuable than we do. And that's the question that everybody needs to understand. Why are they doing as much as they can to keep African Americans and minorities in particular from voting? That's because that vote is valuable. That vote can make the difference in a number of elections. It has done so in the past, and it is doing so today. So we need to understand there's a reason why we are prevented or discouraged from voting, because our voting is potent. And it's potent when everybody casts their vote for the candidate of choice. So there's a lot at stake too in your voting. And that's something else that people need to know. I spend more time in voter education than we do in voter registration. Voter registration is a mechanical process. It was explained very elegantly by Ms. Danna Archie-Williams. But people need to understand why and what the issues are as far as voting is concerned. There are a multitude of issues that we need to understand and know. A valuable voter and a potent voter is an educated and knowledgeable voter. What are the issues? Who are the candidates running for office? What are their issues? Are they going to look out for my best interests if elected? And then at the same time, I need to hold them accountable once they are elected. And I think that's one area in which we have not done a very good job, both nationally and locally, holding our elected officials accountable for what they were supposed to do on our behalf.
Wonderful. So Janice, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, I think it's important that people understand that their voting is valuable. Some may think it's a waste of their time. And I submit that when you spend that 1 hour voting for a president or Congress, it can be the most important thing that you do in that hour each 4 years. It impacts the outcome of an election. There have been very close elections, presidential and local elections, where a few votes determine the results or may have even changed the results. It also is important because it helps you determine the best candidate over another candidate. You want to get people in who's going to share your values and your views, and they're going to support what you're interested in, how it's going to make your livelihood better. Your vote is powerful because if you use your vote, you want it to be with someone who's going to share your values. And last, your vote carries influence. It carries accountability and serves as a penalty for those who may abuse or misuse your vote. So you have the influence, you have the voice, you have the determination to make the results of an election be in your favor and not in someone else's favor.
That's awesome. Mr. Collins,
make this one more comment.
Sure.
Ms. Washington mentioned about how close votes can be. Our county executive, when he was running for the Democratic primary election, I don't know if my numbers are not accurate, but I understand he won by about 17 votes.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
So that's to show you just how votes or how close elections can be, depending on people who will get out and understand what's at stake in their elections.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a very important piece that in order for your voice and your vote to really count, to really be heard, you can't just look at it just voting every 4 years. You have to stay engaged in the process. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you guys, that you have to stay engaged. You have to make sure that who you vote for is in line with your values and actually make it personal to yourself, right? Because it's not about just doing it this one time. It's an ongoing process. And so with that, my question is, what's at stake for 2020? Because every 4 years, every 2 years, we hear this is the most consequential election of our lifetime, right? It sounds so redundant, but this time it feels a little different. So can you share with us what is at stake in this election? Ms. Washington?
People are dying. There are over 200,000 people who have died as a result of the COVID pandemic, and largely because of the mismanagement of a plan and health services to help prevent the disease or to slow the spread of the disease. And as a result, it has caused high unemployment. People have lost their jobs. They have had to apply for unemployment insurance. People are in need of food and shelter and better education for their children. So Whereas one day you were on Easy Street, the next day you're on Back Street. And so people are in a bad shape at the present time. And first, what is at stake? It is the scandals that we have seen, the racism, the deadliness, the divisiveness, the ignorance on the part of some of our leadership. And our voting can make a difference. It can make life better.
What's at stake in this election is something that's happened very recently. We've just lost a Supreme Court Associate Justice. And it's, it's actually the additional issue that is added to the many as it relates to this election. And see, what's at stake right now is the future of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And the fact that right now we have unfortunately have a chance, have a situation where we may have a Supreme Court made up of 6 conservative judges, if another one is appointed, and 3 liberal. So as a consequence, this conservative-leaning court can roll back all of the gains of the civil rights movement. It can overturn the Obamacare Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
It can also overturn Roe v. Wade, which allowed abortions to be legal in the United States. So elections have consequences. And unfortunately, this is a potential consequence that will take place. We have to realize that democracy is at stake right now. Democracy as we know it, and actually democracy as it should be. And so we not only have to vote for the best candidate to shepherd our government, but we also have to make sure we learn from our history. If we do not learn from history, we will repeat ourselves. One takeaway from the 1918 pandemic that swept the country and the world, the one major takeaway that we had or should have learned is the need for transparency on the part of the leadership to make sure that the public who is affected by this pandemic knows the dangers of this pandemic, the need to arrest it as quickly as possible, and not to take that pandemic lightly. That was the major takeaway from 1918. Unfortunately, we didn't do a very good job in learning from history, because we're in a situation now where we have our leadership that's still in a sense of denial as it was back in 1918.
Right.
So that's a very critical issue that it's at stake as we speak.
Yeah. Ms. Thrower?
Hey, I would say, like Mr. Collins just said, our democracy is at stake. Humanity as we know it is at stake. Civilization, our lives as we know it is at stake. And this pandemic is an example of that, right? Things have been changing in big ways. Like Trump would say, in great big ways, right? Things are changing. And there are a lot of other things changing that we're not paying attention to right now, which is why I would say our lives are at stake. Your loved ones' lives are at stake. Your jobs are at stake. Food access is at stake. Everything as you know it is at stake right now during this election. And I believe that we don't value how much is at stake when we think about our health. We talk about healthcare. When we think about all of the people that we've lost in just half of this year.
Yeah.
Due to not having health benefits, or due to not knowing how to take care of themselves, or not having access to the right types of food for us to have a stable immune system or a healthy immune system. So a lot of the things that are at stake have always been at stake, but it's even more at stake now because people are dying more, because we have felt it more than we have before. And I think the only reason we felt it more now is because it's become something that's worldwide, because of social media, because of the video and recording. Everything's at stake, especially for Black people.
Yeah.
When we think about, we're in three pandemics going on, everybody was saying, right? So we had the socioeconomic pandemic, then we have COVID as a pandemic, then we had Black lives. That's a pandemic. Black lives not being valued. And then that trickled down to our education. That trickled down to us always being in survival mode. And I can't think of a time from history, like Mr. Collins has said, that we haven't been, Black people haven't been in survival mode. And so I think that if we've been fighting this fight for so long about the power of our vote, why do you guys think that we've been fighting for so long? Because it means so much. And that's why everything, to me, everything is at stake during this election.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this has been a trying time. And one thing COVID-19 did do, it really brought the systematic racism to the forefront. I mean, things that we just thought were so, you grew up and you just said, well, that's just the way things are. It shouldn't be that way, but because of the way things are is why we're, in so much jeopardy. And this COVID-19 has been such a devastating issue. So
I'm sorry, I just to jump in here, and I know I'm totally neutral.
Yes.
With a lot of things that are being spoken, but reality is still reality. The reality that through all of this, we have been here every day. Most people are working from home. Most people are out there struggling about everything. But we have to come here every day to make sure that your vote is counted. So yes, outside world you can talk about, but to be in this building and know we still have lives outside, that every day from the beginning of this pandemic, I have been here every day. I have a brand new grandbaby who is about to be born within 30 days. I can't see her. I can't be near her just in case. This pandemic has taught me about technology. Yes, it has taught me things, but in the same breath of it, it melts my spirit that I'm out here in the struggle. So we can talk about it on the outside, but the people who are trying to make this happen, regardless of whomever and whatever is thrown at you, we still making it happen.
Yes.
So this very small core group for Baltimore County alone has been here every day. Out of our homes and in this building, with masks on, walking around the building, but we've been here in the midst of all of this, knowing or not knowing if we are sick, not sick, if we are dealing with anything this, because we know how important votes are. So if it can be the struggle of getting people voting, getting people registered, but if you don't have anybody here to process it or conduct it,
right?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So the importance of people understanding, it is a separation of church and state with everything that you do, but you have to remember, these are human beings who are making sure that your right is out there. And we can get excited and we can say, do all of these things, but if you don't take the time to recognize that a human is making sure that your vote is even counted and you can conduct one, I think we've missed the point, the human side of it.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll speak for those of us on the panel. We totally appreciate you, Ms. Archie-Williams, and all of the work that the Baltimore County Board of Election is doing to ensure that our voices are heard, which is why we wanted you to be a part of this panel. Because you're right, without you and your dedicated coworkers, there is no vote. And so just hearing your voice and to be able to answer the questions that many of us have to ensure that we can cast our ballot in a safe environment means the most to us. And so, no, we totally appreciate you. We've appreciated you from the day we met you, and we will continue to appreciate you because we got many, many more elections to conquer with one another. So no, we definitely appreciate you, and we thank you for your voice. And I know that we are coming up on our time, so I'm going to delve into when we talked about sort of the financial pieces of the importance for us to vote. We have this 2020 census that in a matter of days will come to a conclusion. And in my last check, it said Maryland completed the census at a rate of 70.3%. So it's not 100%, and the Census Bureau does not look to have 100% of any given state enumerated and counted, but that's still not good enough. So can we talk about the importance of the 2020 census and how this census will be, the numbers that are counted through this census will last us for the next 10 years. And so first I want to say, tell us what the census is, because there's still some people out there. I know not our audience, not our attendees, because all of you are informed, but there are some folks out there that do not understand what is the census and why it's important. So can you speak to that, Mr. Collins?
Well, the census is a 10-year enumeration of everyone who is living in these United States. It's mandated by the Constitution, and it's conducted, and it has been conducted every 10 years since 1790. The census is important because it will guide reapportionment and redistricting of congressional, state, and local legislative districts throughout the country. It will determine this year how more than $675 million in federal funds will be distributed throughout states. Federal funding, for those of you who probably already know, will help education, public safety, job training, transportation, housing assistance, food and nutrition programs, programs for the aging, and other essential services. It helps businesses and employers know about opportunities for economic development and job creation. One of the concerns that we have is how is that census going to affect or help our population in Baltimore County? As we said earlier, the census is scheduled to end September 20th. That's 30 days less than it was essentially planned for initially. But in Maryland, we have estimates of approximately 68,600 African Americans, 24,000 Hispanics within the state of Maryland. The census undercount is a particular problem for us because right now, I think as you mentioned, we have 72.5% of people who are counted in the county in Baltimore County, but what's at stake basically is the fact that, if we are not careful, we may lose approximately $1,800 per person who is, for whatever reason, uncounted. If 20% of our county population goes uncounted in 2020, that means that the county will lose approximately $305 million per year for the next 10 years. There's an effort to increase the census response rate in Baltimore County, which is an assignment of the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee, which is organizing census community canvassing campaigns for this coming week in several counties, in several areas of Baltimore County, including Gwinoak, Essex, Dundalk, Towson, and Windsor Mill. So to make a long story short, it's important for everybody to be counted if we're going to realize the political and economic benefits that are due our country, our state, our county, and the individuals who live in that county.
Yeah. So Ms. Washington, can you kind of talk about what is Alpha Kappa Alpha doing with regards to voting, as well as the census, and any other initiatives that we should be aware of that Alpha Kappa Alpha is working on, since you're the Maryland State Connection and Social Justice Chair. I think this would be great to hear your voice regarding the work that Alpha Kappa Alpha is doing.
Thank you, Madam President. The Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated has an international connection committee, and it has developed a voter engagement campaign that not only charges the sorority members and chapters to implement a comprehensive voter education, voter registration, and voter mobilization program. You see on the graphic, AKA's LEAD. And that acronym stands for AKA members helping their chapter members and their communities learn about the issues. We are leading to empower people in this election process, either to run for office or to make sure that your vote is counted, getting registered to vote. We are about advocating legislation from the state and the national level. There's going to be policies created that's going to improve the lives of those communities that are less cared for. We hold an AKA Day at the Capitol every year, and we invite our members to come to help talk to their state representatives about the legislation that they are proposing. We had a big effort to improve the financial standing of our historically black colleges and universities, our HBCUs, and money has been allocated for that, but the money has not been spent because of this pandemic. And so our chapters have been keeping tabs on what is going on. We're also concerned about police reform, and we are making recommendations to the Judiciary Committee in the state of Maryland to come up with specific reforms that's going to stop the brutality and to improve the relationships between the communities and the police department. So our chapters in this pandemic, we have not been able to get out into the community on a virtual basis where we are accustomed to doing, working on the census, as well as registering people to vote. But we have almost mastered technology and other communication devices to get the message out for people to register, for people to vote, to explain what the issues are. And our chapters have had webinars like this one all during the year since the pandemic started to help educate and motivate and inspire people to get registered and get involved in this election process. At the same time, we've been partnering with organizations like the NAACP, and on September 26 and 27, they will be having a training meeting to help people understand and utilize their VAN program technology, which is Voter Activation Network. And it's a training and it's a database that our volunteers can use to track, identify, connect, and mobilize voters. So we're working with NAACP chapters across the state. We're working with the national organization When We All Vote, headed by Michelle Obama. And we have organized squad members, squad leaders. We have been texting hundreds and thousands of voters across the country through their Outvote app. As a matter of fact, tonight, on Thursdays, they're having couch parties, and we have members attending those couch parties where they're actually texting people who are eligible to vote across the country. And I'm happy to say I've texted at least 5,000 people. And while all of them will not necessarily be registered to vote, but you're reaching a sizable number of people in order to get the message across. So the AKAs in the state of Maryland have been active and out front and vocal and present when it comes to speaking to the needs of the people. They are activists all over the state to improve the lives and the conditions of all of our people, and I'm very proud of them.
Okay.
So thank you, Ms. Washington. So again, if you haven't already registered to vote, please go to the link that was just shown on the screen to register. And if you are in fact registered, please check your registration. If you take away nothing else from today's discussion, those are the two things I want you to take away. Register to vote, be engaged.
Just this real quick, the AKAs have this customized portal that is designed to self-register yourself. So by all means, please use that portal, or you can go to your website to the Board of Elections. But the AKA members have been circulating and distributing this portal so we can get people registered to vote where they are. You don't have to have anybody fill out a paper. You can click on weall.vote/AKA. It will open up and you can register yourself.
All right, thank you. So Tenne, question for you before we open up the lines to our attendees. How should one prepare for election day? And in our case, because of the pandemic, and we should probably get used to this, election week. How should one be prepared?
I would say, I think Obama put out a message today, Mr. Obama, right, saying that everyone should have a plan for voting, and I agree. My plan is that I'm going to early vote. I planned on early voting in the primary, but then I was like, yeah, I don't know. But I made sure I went to drop off my ballot and put it in the actual ballot box. So I think that the first thing I would say is make your plan, and your first step of your plan should be to request your ballot and to check your voter registration status. It should be both of those things, like what was shared with us earlier during this conversation. The next thing I would say is to definitely make sure, if you can, vote early. And if not, put on your mask, put on your t-shirts, go with your group of friends or your family member, or take your child or take another family member with you and stand in line and vote in person. If anything, worst comes to worst, definitely vote in person. And make sure that you show and share with everyone about how excited you are about voting in person. I know the last week I broke out my whole party at the mailbox box and shared it with you all. I don't have it by me right now, but our party at the mailbox initiative is about being excited for the whole family, the whole household, and the whole city, right? And the whole county, the whole state. Just being excited about the power of voting and the impact that it has on all of us. And just that it is a democracy, but it's something that we should all celebrate, because there's a lot that had to take place when we look at history in order for us to be able to vote. So I would definitely say create your plan, who you're going with, how you're going with, what materials are you going to have with you. Make sure you use the bathroom before you leave to go out and go stand in the long line. Have your t-shirt on or your hoodie on, your jacket on, your mask on, have your hand sanitizer ready.
And if you have to, pack your breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
That's right. Have your phone charged. Have your cell phone charged so you can take pictures and video.
Exactly. Bring a chair. That's right. That's right.
Bring a chair. That's right. So we wanna make sure we rock this thing out. I think that one of the first times when I went voting, and it was for Obama, and I was in college, and we packed it up. We was in the rain, it was cold. It was so cold, but we were like, oh no, we're going to do this. We're going to be a part of history.
That's right.
And I want everybody to know it doesn't have to be a black man or a black woman or anybody else running for this to be important to us. Every voting, every election is making history every single time. And I know you guys mentioned earlier about the challenge of people only voting every 4 years, when the real power lies in our local elections, when we vote for the judges, when we vote for, all of those people who really impact us every day, when we vote for our city council members, when we vote for our mayor, all of those things are extremely important, because those are people that in our jurisdiction that are part of our everyday lives, who deal with when the lights come on, when the lights come out, what areas the police, service the most, or what areas get rec centers, what areas get nice buildings, or what areas houses are being developed, or what areas new school buildings are going to areas, new school buildings are going up in. So just want to remind everybody is have a plan. And make sure you have a plan for every election, and it's okay if it looks different. And I think I said it last week too. I remember one of the first times when I started voting too, I was afraid. I didn't know I could leave work. Well, I was supposed to leave work in order to be able to vote. So don't let anybody intimidate you. Don't let anything steer you away. Just know that your vote is important. And if it wasn't important, they wouldn't be trying to stop us or stop you from voting. And so create that plan. And it would be nice if the mailbox was part of your plan. So follow our Black Girls Vote page on social media. And the link will be coming out soon for you to register for a Party at the Mailbox box.
That's right. Make a plan. So we'll open up the lines for questions. And I do have one question that I'll read to the panelists and while we're waiting for additional questions to come in. In a local and state level election, the popular vote elects the candidates. However, on a federal level, I understand that the Electoral College is the deciding vote. How close do you think we as Americans are close to eliminating that process? Or do you think that process is cemented in our culture?
Well, I don't think that process is cemented in our culture. I think it's time that we consider putting it aside. Eliminating it. There are a couple of recent elections that were decided not by the popular vote, but by the vote of the Electoral College. I don't think it's a fair way of electing candidates by a popular vote, because in most cases in the past, those who won the popular votes, in my opinion, would have been the better candidate to win that election. But that's something that we're gradually looking at. First of all, we're discussing that topic more and more now than we ever before. And I have a feeling there'll be continued discussions about the Electoral College and whether or not it's outlived its usefulness, if it ever had one, in our body politic for elections. So I think I look forward to that discussion. I think it's one worth having. And I think it's better for democracy in the long run. There's an old saying that we are living in a participatory democracy. Well, the Electoral College doesn't necessarily adhere to that concept because we might participate, but there's no guarantee we're going to get the results of our participating in that democracy through situations like the Electoral College.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Washington?
I would say that the Electoral College was created historically to give small states more power. Mm-hmm. And that has been sustained over the years. And I think that it is now time for the United States to determine a more equitable process. And you cannot become more equitable unless it's by the popular vote. I mean, everything else hinges on the majority rules.
Right.
In all of our deliberations in a democracy, it's based upon the majority rules. And so that we need to reevaluate the Electoral College and how it is benefiting a small number of states. The swing states are the states that get the attention, like Ohio and Florida, now Michigan, and now Minnesota, smaller than some of the larger states. And so we need to reevaluate that, because it is not fair, in my opinion, for those states to get the attention, that all of the determination of the voting is hinged on a few states and not on the majority of the people who live in all of the states.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Tenne, do you want to add anything to this?
I agree. Look, I agree with that with my elders, right?
Okay.
That we need to reevaluate it. I think that when I first, as a young voter, I guess a while ago, like it was so confusing for me, even learning it in school, right? Learning it in school and then seeing it in person as an actual voter, as a young adult. It was just so confusing and it just seemed so unfair, right? And not equitable. And I think it's still the same way. It's like, wait a minute, I'm pretty smart. Why don't I get this? Or why don't I understand this? And I think that it's just a way of being able to handle the power to certain people, and it's not equitable at all. So I agree.
Yeah. So Ms. Archie-Williams, I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is, what about students away at school? Do they have to mail their ballots home for them to be counted? And then the other question is, we went from 236 to 43 drop box locations. What is the impact of that decision?
Physically, it has been, when you have 236 polling locations, that means individual locations that would house a certain amount of people to actually produce the election. Mm-hmm. When you turn from those 236 location to the 42 to the 42 locations, one, we have everyone's ballot in each one of those locations. So that alone, to maintain that, is a lot more controlled environment for individuals to come in, staying safe, making sure that they're have the protective gear and things like that. More than anything is to keep safe. For young people, and this is very important, if you are registered in the state of Maryland, but you are away at school, first and foremost, we need to mail you your ballot to you at school. From school, you just put it in the mail. Remember, the postage is already paid. So all you have to do is vote your ballot, seal it, sign it, put it in the mail, and it'll return back to us. For individuals that were at school but now are home, it's just the same process. We sent you an application probably to your school. So as you see my head sitting down, this is what I've been doing, cleaning those records up in order to send them over to them. Yes. So as you can see, that's what I've been doing in between conversation. It's called correcting them. So I'm removing the mailing address because they're not away at school anymore, and it was returned to us. So now I'm sending the applications out to their home address, but they can go on the website themselves and apply for the mail-in ballot. And they can also correct their address away at school, because more than likely, in 2 years when the next election comes, they definitely will not be at that location for college. So let's clean up these records now so you can always get your information directly to where you are physically.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I have another question for you, Ms. Archie-Williams. I told you, stick around.
I'm here.
So if someone is not able to be an election judge for whatever reason, this election cycle, can I drop off completed ballots for my neighbors? The person really wants to figure out how can they support this election. So,
well, that's a great idea.
Drop off ballots.
Again, as Ms. Thurl actually said, making that plan, being a part of a good neighbor. If being a part of a good neighbor is to make sure that your elderly neighbors that are around you who can't even go to the drop box, you're going, ask them if they would like you to drop it off. That's neighbor to neighbor. That's being a good neighbor. As for giving them a ride or whatever, if they feel more comfortable with that way, these drop boxes will be manned 24/7. So the Board of Election will actually get pickups twice a day, every day, while these envelopes are out there. So they're going to get rounded up, they're going to come back, get counted. So that's a chain of custody for us. Now, as for neighbors helping neighbors, that's on that side. My suggestion is just vote it, seal it, and get it to a drop-off spot. So making that plan for your neighbors, for your mom, your uncles, your aunts. Maybe you can't go visit with them dealing with this, but if nothing else, they can hand that to you for you to go and drop that off for them. That's being a good neighbor.
Yeah, awesome. You know, it takes a village, they say. So
yes, indeed.
Let's
yes, indeed.
So are there any additional questions? We have some time. Don't be shy. We have all the experts here.
I have a question to ask
Sure.
Ms. Williams. Did you say that the drop boxes are going to be secured?
Yes, sir. 24/7.
Okay. And is there any way that they could possibly increase the number of drop boxes that you said will be available? I think you said 43. The reason why
43. To maintain 43 is a job within itself. Because remember, we're still dealing with a COVID virus that's out there. Mm-hmm. So you're still having to have them come in. We're going to have to actually quarantine them. And then we have to also physically count them and secure them here. Mm-hmm. So it's a process just for receiving them in. Okay. So having more locations doesn't make it better. Okay. More locations makes it more of a cumbersome issue that you're dealing with the security as well as having somebody to go pick those up. So we're already spending a lot of money just to have a person ride around collecting ballots.
I'll say the reason why I asked that question is because when doing community census canvassing,
yes, sir.
We noticed that there were a number of people who hadn't filled out their census questionnaires who were not registered to vote either. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, those individuals who are registered may have a difficult time going to where the drop boxes are currently located. So I've heard for the first time from you, and I appreciate that information, why that's a cumbersome problem. But,
well, actually, remember also, I'm sorry to cut you off, but also remember, it's a prepaid stamp on there. It's already prepaid. It can go back to the post office.
Okay.
So there's every opportunity in the world for you have a prepaid, just like if you had a prepaid for your bills. Mm-hmm. Well, we would send them in by the mail because it's prepaid.
Right, okay.
So there's every opportunity. For the post office, you can put it in any mailbox, and that was a whole discussion for a moment. But there's post office, there's post box, there's drop boxes. Election day, there still will be a drop box there even on election day. If you want to come take a selfie of me dropping it in, you got a box too. So there's opportunities for photo ops everywhere that you go, but just don't take a picture of a ballot inside the room. That's all I ask for you to do.
Ms. Washington?
Just a quick question to Danna.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, how are you?
I'm great.
Great. I just wanted you to make the distinction between the absentee ballot and the mail-in ballot, and whether or not there's any difference in those ballots, because we've heard a lot in the past about absentee ballots, but now we're hearing about mail-in ballots. So what's the distinction?
They changed the pretty name. Mm-hmm. Absentee made people feel as though they were absent from voting. Mm-hmm. Absentee was originally in place for people who would be away for election day, mm-hmm. who would be away for early voting. That was absent from the state only. Maryland is a no-fault state. So at any point, you do an absentee ballot. I've always done one because during election, where was I? Either here or at one of the sites or somewhere. So I didn't get a chance to vote at my polling location. So I really haven't even gotten a chance to vote in a polling location in 16 years. So I can train you how to do it, but I haven't done it myself. So this is why I say mail-in is what I've been used to doing the whole time. Mm-hmm. So doing my ballot, sealing it up, turning it in, it's getting stamped in, and then when we do the canvass, that's when it's presented. So it's still election, and the election results aren't completed yet. So people love hype. So they see the little ring across the bottom, so they think that's the end of voting. And as I pointed to earlier, last election was the recounts and things like that. Well, you only can do it when you actually physically have the ballot to do it. So this is where we are. So this is why the results are not completed until 21 days after.
So
it's just two different names, so it's the same thing.
Yeah, we have one last question, and then I'll turn it back to my co-moderator, Ms. Staples, to close us out. Okay. The other question is this. I heard, and this is my question, that during the primaries, mm-hmm. there were a fair number of ballots that were not counted. So can you share with us what we need to make sure that our ballots are counted? I know some, and it might not be Maryland, where they said if you didn't sign the back, your ballot's not counted.
Right, because that is your oath.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what should everyone who decide to send their mail-in ballots back through the mail or put it in a drop box, they need to make sure it's on that ballot for it to be counted?
I physically haven't gotten my ballot yet, so I can't even tell you how it's designed. The issue that we had last election, well, this is number 4 election this year, so it's kind of hard to separate them. The election that we had, I could have brought one. It had your oath on the back of it. That says that I, Danna Archie-Williams, will only vote this ballot. This is my ballot. I sign it, I date it, I put it in the mail. With the whole fear of identity theft, people didn't sign them. They were scared. Fear rules the day sometimes, but we requested for those people to send their signatures in. They did. So a lot of them did come in. When you say a lot, if it's 20, the news broadcasters are going to say it's 2,000. So we're going to leave that alone. But if it is coming in late because they didn't put it in the mail or they didn't drop them off, procrastination is the theme of the day as well. So all of those negativity parts are still what happens. We are still receiving return mail to this day from the election because people didn't update their address. Yeah. So we can produce a election, we can run an election, but we need you as a voter to keep us up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And so, Mr. Collins, and then followed by Tenne, can you close us out? Give us an update of what's happening with the Baltimore County NAACP and what upcoming events that you guys have. And Tenne, if you could follow and let us know the same, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, well, I think one particular issue that we have taken on and addressed, and that is changing the culture of policing in our county. And we unfortunately have not heard from our federal government as to how they're going to pass police reform legislation. But we're happy to say that we're going to join 62 of 100 of our largest cities in coming up with police reform in Baltimore County. So we have been promoting that effort, and as a result, our councilman, Julian Jones, has introduced the bill to our county council. It's called the Smart Policing Act. Smart meaning strengthening, modernization, accountability, reform, and transparency Policing Act. And again, when we talk about participatory democracy and participating in the process, we have an opportunity for our general public here in Baltimore County to present written and oral testimony about this legislation on September 10th at the Baltimore County work site, Baltimore County Council's work session, excuse me. And they'll have a chance to vote on that bill at their meeting on Monday, October 5th. But this is one area in which we have been very much involved in. We've met with the police department on a couple of occasions, met with the officials, and urged an improvement in police community relations. That's been our major focus of attention recently. We've been involved, as I mentioned earlier, with when I have about the 2020 census. We made presentations, we've hosted presentations on the census, and all of this is a part of promoting it to the general public. We've been also very much involved in the Board of Education and Baltimore County Public Schools in general. We've continued to urge the Baltimore County Board of Ed to continue equity training, and that the school system is to do the same for its administrators and staff. We participate in stakeholder meetings where we're able to give briefings on issues of concern and recommendations as it relates to opening up the public schools. So, and of course, we, before the pandemic, conducted voter registration activities in our local high schools as an effort. So we've been very much engaged in that effort. I might add that our national organization is having its virtual convention these past 2 weeks. And this week we'll be having regional meetings and regional youth meetings as well. So that's just a snapshot of some of the activities and events that we've been engaged in up to this point.
Wonderful, thank you. Tenne, can you tell us briefly what's going on with Black Girls Vote?
So Black Girls Vote, we just started back up doing some in-person voter registration. Of course, we've been helping people with online voter registration. We have a couple of more volunteers and people who joined Black Girls Vote at our last two interest meetings who will be trained tomorrow on voter registration. And then we have another group that'll be trained later on this week. So we'll be out in Baltimore City and Baltimore County streets this weekend doing some voter registrations. Our goal is to do at least 6 to 10 more in-person voter registrations despite COVID before early voter registration day. We are doing our Party at the Mailbox initiative here in Baltimore, Baltimore City and County, and we are expanding to Detroit and Philadelphia. So in Philadelphia, we have the Detroit Pistons on board. We have the company Everybody versus Detroit on board. And we're just like excited. So we have a lot of big people and a lot of regular community organizations that are on board with this initiative. And then we're doing the same thing in Philadelphia. And of course, the same thing again in Baltimore. We have to do it in our hometown if we're going to take it everywhere else. So we're excited about the organizations we're partnering with, like Baltimore Votes, like our sororities, just like AKA, we're partnering with Delta and a couple of other sorority members across the state, actually, with making sure that everyone gets out to vote. And then we'll be joining you guys again next week.
Yes, that's right, that's right. So this is a great segue. Crystal?
So it is. It's a great segue. And I'd like to thank each and every one of our panelists for joining us, taking time out of your busy schedules to help us understand the voter process in this engagement and our requirements, responsible citizens, to do our homework, to study and to make a plan on how we're going to vote in this election to make sure that our voices are heard. And so I ask all the participants and all our audience, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. But I need to remind you that next week, on the 29th of September, we have one more webinar that's called Voter Suppression, making a plan to combat voter suppression. And we invite you all to come again and join the lively discussion on how we can avoid voter suppression, how we can combat it by making our plans and getting ourselves ready to go in and let our voices be heard at the polls. So this is important for us all. It's going to be an exciting day, but we can be armed and ready to do what we need to do as citizens here in the state of Baltimore and the United States. Okay, so thank you very much for coming and joining us.
Okay.
Bye-bye.